of ridiculousness and nonsense, lose the Ripple case, lose the ETF case with Grayscale, lose a couple of other smaller cases, get a rebuke from a district court judge in terms of the way the SEC is handling itself. So if you had asked me in November of 2021, when Bitcoin got the futures approval and Bitcoin was trading at 68,000, and you said to me, Anthony, you invite me on, that Anthony, where will Bitcoin be trading in October of 2024, 3 years later? I would have said, $150,000, $200,000. But that didn't happen. And so we went from here, we went down, and then we went back up. And so it looks flat. Gold has added maybe just under $6 trillion of market capitalization over that period of time. Said differently, if Bitcoin added $5 to $6 trillion of market capitalization, it would be $300,000 to $400,000 per coin. So this is a regulatory morass. This is a net that caught the industry and slowed down the growth. By the way, I think we're doing great. I think the industry's best years are ahead of it. I think that we brush back these regulators. We
learn more at bitdeer.com and explore how they are pioneering the future today. Yeah, no, I want to touch on several of those points. And you're right. One of my worries was that if Republicans say really embrace Bitcoin, that just to oppose them, just to be the opposite force, that the Democrats would come back and say we're really against it. But I do want to ask you more about your conversations. I heard about the call that you were on with Mark Cuban and the Democrats that are trying to influence the policymakers and the future administration. And I just want to know, what are those conversations like? Because very recently, Biden vetoed the repeal that was bipartisan for SAB 121 so that these big institutions, these big banks could custody Bitcoin. And it seems like, a lot of people are concerned that if Kamala Harris gets in, there's going to be another Operation Choke Point, that would be extended, or that SAB 121 would continue. So tell me more about these conversations.
Yeah. So, those are great questions. And so unfortunately, I got my 11-day PhD on how Washington works. So let me tell you the bad news about Washington. It doesn't work like business. We're all incentivized by money. And where is Bitcoin going to go? Well, it's going to go from 6,000 to 60,000 over that period of time. I would take that as a win. One of the reasons why my peer group wants Trump to win is they see him, that's a Bitcoin trade. They see him as being pro-Bitcoin. He'll put people in these agencies. He'll knock out all the anti-Bitcoiners or anti-blockchain people, and he'll fortify these places with pro-growth of the industry. And that would dramatically help, of course. One of the risks about her is that she hasn't openly articulated her strategy. Now, if you had Mark Cuban on here with you, he would say something similar to what I'm going to say, that, former President Trump represents other existential dangers, which would be bad for the overall marketplace. My old boss had a great line. I'll share it with you. Money likes cowardice. Money is a coward. And what do I mean by that? Money goes to where there's the least amount of risk. Money goes into the United States because it's the safest. As a Bitcoin futures ETF, well, the Bitcoin spot ETF is identical. And so what is right there in the administrative code? The regulator or the administrator can't be arbitrary or capricious with the regulation. So if you had me on your podcast, man, did I get this wrong? I would have said, Natalie, by February of 2022, there'll be a cash ETF because the law requires that. Well, he, in a czar-like way, said, I don't care about the law. I'm going to find ways to block this. And by the way, one of the applications he blocked was the Skybridge application. We had an application in for an ETF. He denied it. Same exact language as the ones that got approved, but we missed the opportunity because of the law. We were ahead of our peer group, but that's fine. That's what happens in life. Grayscale goes on to win the court case, which was predictable based on the law, but he delayed the growth in the industry by 2 years.
It's crazy to think about Gensler because he sort of has been a fair weather
book right now. It's at the publisher now, and it's called The Little Book of Bitcoin. What Wall Street already knows that you need to find out. And Michael Saylor wrote the introduction for me, wrote the forward, and it's a 200-page book that if you read the book, it's a primer on Bitcoin, it's a primer on the blockchain, and it's a message. And I've interviewed everybody, whether it was Robbie Mitchnick or people at Fidelity, people at Franklin Templeton, just why people should think about this technology, why people should embrace the technology, and why it is a hard asset. Because at first glance, you're like, well, this is a bunch of computer code. Why should that be worth anything? But then if you understand the technology of money and you understand what gold actually represents in our society, what it's. So I don't want to poo-poo that. I want to legitimize aspects of that. I do understand that Bitcoin is for the people and that Bitcoin is a libertarian concept. And Bitcoin is actually, it's sort of, have you ever heard of the group Moms Against Drunk Driving? Okay, so Bitcoiners, it should be bad. Bitcoiners against the drunk driving of central bankers. Okay, so I sort of feel like the central banking community has been drunk driving with our fiat currency, and they've wrecked it. You took $35 an ounce in 1971. It's $2,600 an ounce today. Our purchasing power. It's crazy, but I mean, these numbers are accurate. $2 of 1971 dollars, getting a retail investor and an institutional investor to consider what they're offering. And we just got that process started. There was a little bit of a curing process after the ETFs were launched. Now they're out there with these PowerPoint presentations delivering, and you'll see, here's the thing. There's a great line from Yogi Berra. Okay, your dad would probably remember Yogi Berra. He was a Hall of Fame catcher for the Yankees.
Didn't he say a nickel ain't worth a dime anymore?
Yeah, nickel ain't worth a dime anymore. It's not over till it's over. It's some great lines. But he was a catcher. They put him out in left field as he got older, and he was dropping one fly ball after the next. And when he came in to talk to the press, he said, it gets late early out there. So which basically implied there were like shadows out there because the sun was setting, is 68 cents. Right. So you lost 32% of your purchasing power. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So Bitcoin didn't lose any of that. It's still right there. You see what I mean? And so what I would say to you is, again, I don't know the answer. That's why I'm being so cautious, but I would say this to you. I would say we have to push this. This is something that Wall Street will help with, but we have to push the idea that it's a diversifier and it's a hard asset. And if you are an hourly worker like my dad was, you're losing to the man.
Right.
Because the man owns assets and you don't. And Bitcoin is a way for you to get a piece of the action.
Right.
And again, it's broken up into 100 million Satoshis per coin. Just start buying some Satoshis.
Right. It's the one thing that can't be diluted, because I think we would both agree that all roads lead to having to print more money. And so Bitcoin will obviously benefit from that, but it means a decreasing power of every dollar that we earn. And so you have to find those hard, scarce assets.
There's only the political class failed the country. We overspent. We got into too many wars and entanglements that didn't really benefit us. We were flexing in parts of the world that didn't make much sense. Trillions of dollars were wasted. And it's going to be up to your generation to clean this up and to fix it. And so I'm optimistic about that. And people are like, well, how could you be optimistic about that? Look at the trends. And so I'll leave you with this thought. We thought we were going to run out of oil in 1985. We had this idea called peak oil. Well, it turns out we got that wrong because we developed GPS and satellite technology and fracking. We have more oil than we know what to do with. We were told in the 1850s that we were going to run out of food. Thomas Malthus said that we're growing the population exponentially, but we can only grow the food linearly. But then they left out irrigation, genetically modified fertilizer, genetically modified seed, horizontal farming. I could list.
You can't spend your way out of poverty. You can't spend your way out of homelessness.
No way.
We've got to have actual solutions and bring it back to the free market. In my opinion, we're real competition, real value. So, always great to talk to you, Anthony. Where can people find you, and what should we know about the publish date for your book? When can people get that?
So the book will be obviously where books are sold, but on Amazon on December 5th. You can pre-order on Amazon.
Great.
I'm at Scaramucci on Twitter and Instagram, and I have a fun political podcast with a woman named Katty Kay called The Rest is Politics US, where we analyze the weekly events that happen in the presidential campaign. And since there's never a shortage of those, Natalie, it's a fun